Do you ever get so tired of being subjected to land acknowledgments that you just want to scream? That's the exact breaking point that a mom in Seashell, BC came to while she was subjected to yet another land acknowledgement mantra at her child's school. And this time she spoke out against it. And now she's banned from her child's school. And the school even had the child go under a psychological assessment. What a wild story. I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News, and that mom joins me now. Her name is Lara Yates.
The land acknowledgements they're a complicated issue in British Columbia in particular.
Whew.
And I don't like the school using this as an opportunity to further divide our community with this highly contentious, complicated issue that affects all of us. And that was my basic issue with it to begin with. I also don't appreciate the teachers with their politics at the school. It's supposed to be a politically neutral environment
Mm-hmm.
that all children are supposed to be welcome. All families should be welcome. And I think when you pick any one group or race and put them above everybody else, I just think it's racist. Just like I think it would be the same way if you put them beneath everybody else. I think, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I'm not going to put myself above anybody, and I'm not going to put myself below anybody.
right.
And
Especially our kids.
there is no way I'm willing to have my children feel guilty about being born in our great country that really what they need to be is grateful. They
Mm-hmm.
need to be proud of this great country and grateful that they get to be a citizen of Canada. And there's so much we have to be proud of. And I'm not willing to ignore all those sacrifices made
Mm-hmm.
by so many great Canadians that came before us to sort of suck up to any particular one group more than another, I guess.
I've been seeing more and more land acknowledgements in my life. At sporting events, before meetings, at schools. It feels like the thing to do.
Especially since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report. I think there's been a lot more discussion about Indigenous peoples' ongoing relationships with territory, and so existing acknowledgement practices have expanded and in some cases accelerated.
Now take us to the moment where you're like, enough is enough. I'm going to say something. Where were you and what happened after?
I think we said, spare us your politics. BC is for all of us, is
Mm-hmm.
what we said. And then we were quiet. And then two
And this
weeks
is
later,
is it like, was this during a land acknowledgement? Who was doing the land acknowledgement?
we were,
Did you yell this out or?
it was a school play. And so there was a land acknowledgement before the play. We didn't do it during the play while the kids were doing their thing. There was a teacher on stage who was doing the land acknowledgement. And so that's what we said loudly when she was making the acknowledgement. So,
All
yeah.
right.
And then 2 weeks later, we go back for another school play, another land acknowledgement. And at this point, I think I reached my boiling point, and I just decided to get really obnoxious about it. And so I was saying things along those lines: spare us your politics. BC is for all of us. Thank the BC taxpayer. You racist, you bigot, you liar. And that's what I was saying to the teacher who was doing the land acknowledgement. And I did that throughout the entire acknowledgement. In hindsight, I probably just should have, it was obnoxious. I don't want to stop people's speech, but I don't want to sit there and be silent and pretend that I agree, because I don't. When you say we want to acknowledge this, that, or the other,
Mm-hmm.
no, we don't, because we don't feel that way. You do, maybe, but I don't.
That's a good point. You're sort of held hostage there in that type of environment. It's a public school. You're supposed to be going to a secular school. You're supposed to be going to a neutral school. And you're told, we believe this about the land that you actually live on and that your children as well. And this is what you have to partake in order to watch your own child at this recital.
Exactly.
Tell us what happened. What was the response like in the audience? And then what happened? I believe it was after the recital.
So, I mean, nothing really happened while I was doing that heckling. I think a couple people told me to shut up or something. Um, but not much. For the most part, it was just quiet. And then as soon as they were done with the land acknowledgement and I was quiet, I just sat there and enjoyed the performance, quietly and enjoyed the play, which was great. It was a really good play. And then after the performance, we went to go see our daughter who was in the play, and we brought her flowers, and she was all happy because she did great in the play, and the play turned out really well, and she thought our heckling was funny, and so everybody was happy. And then she got backstage, and the teacher decided to try to get all the students against our daughter. It's that kid whose parents were saying it. It's that kid whose parents were trying to wreck the performance. It's that kid, my daughter, trying
And
to,
how do you know that was happening?
because our daughter told us, and then that made her anxious, and she told the teacher she was anxious.
Mhm.
And then they called in a psych assessment saying that she might be suicidal
Wow.
based on that. And no, she was never suicidal. She never expressed such a thing, and she never has in her life. And she was just feeling like upset that this
Right.
teacher is discriminating against her and bullying her based on her parents' political beliefs. She was just kind of stunned by that. And so they called in a psych assessment for her. They wouldn't allow her to come home from school. And then when the psych assessment didn't work out for them, like they weren't able to, take her to the hospital or anything because she was fine. So that's when they decided to call the Children's Services, the Ministry of Children and Family
Wow.
Development, and try to, scare us or shame us that way. So they interviewed us and they interviewed our kids, and obviously they had no concerns. So that was immediately closed. So that didn't work for the school either. And then they got frustrated. So they decided to ban me and my children from the school. So for 2 months, myself and my kids were banned. And now they're allowed back, but I'm not, until I
Wow.
have a meeting with them, with the district, where they're going to, make me apologize for my bad behavior or whatever, which I'm not going to do. And I'm happy to have that meeting with them with counsel, but they won't allow me to have counsel.
Hmm. So
And why
what's
wouldn't they
ha
allow me to have my lawyer? Seems odd.
that seems extremely odd. And speaking of your lawyer, Rebel News Ezra Levant actually sat down and interviewed her. That's Lisa Bildy. She is also the executive for the Free Speech Union, which is who you reached out to for help, a
Yes.
nonprofit. Here's a little bit about what she had to say about the legal fight.
Lara received something called a Section 177 order, which is a direction basically not to attend on school property. It's like a trespass notice. And the legislation makes it, to me at least, reasonably clear that this is supposed to be done to maintain or establish order in the moment. And of course, it wasn't necessary. She was quiet. After her brief outburst, she sat still and quiet and wasn't a problem. So it wasn't needed. It was being used the next day as a form of punishment. Now you're banned. You cannot come on your daughter's school property for 2 months. And then there was going to be some condition that she'd have to kind of establish that she was prepared to behave before she'd be allowed back on. So what we were able to do is, first of all, file an internal appeal to the superintendent. That was allowed to us under the regulations, and then that was denied. And we tried to appeal it to the school board. We were denied the opportunity to do that, and so now we're proceeding to a judicial review. But one of the other things we're seeking or that I'm contemplating seeking, is an order quashing the orders that allow these Indigenous land acknowledgements in the first place. There's an interesting provision in the School Act. It says, this is section 76. It says all schools and provincial schools must be conducted on a strictly secular and non-sectarian principles.
Mm-hmm.
So as you were saying at the outset, these have taken on a quasi-religious tenor.
Yeah.
There's certainly, if you take the position that sectarian is not just a religious concept, but refers to very strong controversial topics that people might reasonably disagree on, for a public school to take a position on something like that is, in my view, or at least it's arguable, that that's contrary to the intent of this section of the Act, which there are public schools that have to educate children from all backgrounds, all political perspectives. They shouldn't be taking a side on controversial issues, and they need to stop. So if this is one way to help stop that, I'm inclined to take it forward.
So what is life like for them now, and what do they think about the stance that you took during the recital?
Well, I mean, they understand and respect the stance that I took, and they're with us, but I'm sure they would prefer to be back at school. They miss their friends, and my daughter would love the opportunity to walk across the stage and get her diploma this year and do the whole cap and gown thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, facts are, teaching isn't very important to BC teachers. Politics are. So what we have are activists masquerading as educators, and they would much rather hold on to their ability to push their politics on parents and students than actually teach the students, which they've made perfectly clear in all of this. And that's been really hurtful to my kids, because I think kids like to think that maybe their teachers care about them a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, care about their well-being, care
And
about
some do, for sure. But
right. And this has been a blow to my kids to find out that, the teachers fully think they should have every right to bully my children.
well,
And they don't have to educate BC kids if their parents don't vote NDP. I think the school should be open and welcome to everyone, including kids whose parents don't vote NDP. And I think the teachers disagree, because you have to sit there and quietly be lectured to by them on all those policies. And that feels really odd to me as a taxpayer and a parent.
Well, Miss Bill D has appealed their decision to ban you, and this fight is going to go all the way to the BC Supreme Court, so we'll be following it closely. Any
Thank you.
last words for parents who are experiencing what you had been fed up with?
Please speak up. I don't want to do this alone. Please speak up. The more they know that, I think I'm the silent majority. And I think the more we are a thorn in the side of the BCTF, the faster we can get rid of all of these race-based school policies.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Drea.
At Rebel News, we bring you the other side of the story, and that includes sounding the alarm on land acknowledgement mantras for years. If you appreciate the work that we do and want to take action, you can go to our special website called endlandgrabs.com, sign and share our petition, and donate what you can.